L'actualité de Selznick, ce n'est pas seulement l'édition française de ses fameux mémos, mais aussi le cycle du Ciné-Club d'Antenne 2 qui lui est consacré depuis un mois, avec notamment le Rebecca d'Hitchcock. C'est ici que Rebecca a été tournée, et aussi Autant n'emporte le vent, Duel au soleil, Intermezzo, dans les studios de Selznick à Hollywood. C'est le premier film tourné par Hitchcock en Amérique, ceci à la demande de Selznick, qui l'avait convaincu de quitter l'Angleterre pour venir travailler dans ses studios. Les rapports bientôt difficiles et tumultueux entre ces deux hommes à forte personnalité avaient eu pour témoin pendant le tournage la jeune script Lydia Schiller, la plus proche collaboratrice de Selznick durant toute sa carrière.
Mr. Selznick really directed from his desk. He wrote everything into the script that he wanted in the script. And that's why it behooved a director to follow the script. And not many directors want to do that. They have their own version. They wanted to have their own ideas to how it should be done. And this is where they tangled with Mr. Selznick if they were that type of director. Mr. Hitchcock, for one, because he was his own man, as it were, you know, his own director. And he had other ideas. I'll just give you, may I jump to Rebecca? How to introduce Rebecca, whom we never meet in the film. Mr. Selznick introduced her in her bedroom so that he would start on this beautiful pillow and then an elaborate initial of R. So he had a big close-up of the R, and then he pulled all the way back and gradually moved around, and you saw the beautiful bedroom that she had, and you knew from that the type of woman she was. Now, that was important to start on that letter R. Mr. Hitchcock had the other idea, to do it just the reverse. So he wanted to show the full bedroom and then close in on R. And that was, I had to, you know, when I saw he did that, and I was holding script then, and we worked, I was sitting with him, and I pointed out what the script called for, and that Mr. Selznick really would expect to see that. And he says, I'm not going to do it that way. And that put me in a difficult spot, because you know, he'd say, well, what's Lydia doing? What was the matter? And that. So I called his assistant at that time, and I explained what was happening. She said, oh, no. He would hit the ceiling if he saw that in the projection room like that. And I said, well, that's what's going to happen. We still had not broken the shot, because Mr. Hitchcock was going to move in for another angle or something. And it was to be all in one shot. So she called down to Mr. Selznick's office and got through. He says, no, right away, no, he can't do that. And what he did was, you know, one of his famous memos, quick memo he wrote. And while he was just breaking up the shot, he got this memo of criticism of what he shot there. And he said, wait a minute, what's going on here? And he says, no, stop everything. Was Mr. Selznick on the set? He said, no, nobody saw him on the set. How did he know what I was doing? How did he know the way I shot that film? Of course, I gulped. He looked around, and he looked at me, and he says, you? And I said, yeah, because I, you know, had to watch the script, and you weren't doing what Mr. Selznick wanted, and that. And he says, you, Lydia, you're the last person I would have thought. You're supposed to be working for me. And he said, but you're not. And he treated me like a spy, which of course I was, you know. And you can understand as a director how that would sit. And from then on, you know, he didn't trust me. He didn't want to work with me. He had to. And he really put me through the baptism of fire. You know, he really, in many devious ways, he would make me suffer for that. Then, of course, he did give Mr. Selznick the close-up pullback shot that he wanted. So Mr. Selznick did get it. So long as Mr. Selznick had plenty of film, then he could put it all together in his own way. That was a Selznick film. It really was. And later, because he gave, Mr. Hitchcock really gave me a very difficult time, I asked him, I said, well, Mr. Hitchcock, why didn't you fire me from this? Why didn't you let me go and refuse to work with me? And he skirted around that. He couldn't tell me why. And I never did know why. But at the end of the film, he gave everybody a present, but he didn't give me one.